By the end of this video, you're literally gonna have a jig that nobody has. So as you guys know, I'm a strong believer, jigs catch bigs, right? And normally I build my own. I build like this custom ball head finesse jig that I showed you guys, a custom football stand-up jig, absolutely sick, right? Use Boss components, get them from Tackle Warehouse. So a couple months ago, I found this jig and I love doing this new school kind of tournament technique that I've found where you use a jig for forward facing and you drop on these fish. We caught like 28, 29 pounds, dude. But the irony being, it's the Cumberland Pro, it's a ball finesse jig right there. It has some unique components. It's got a little flat spot on the head, has a little downsized hook that's a little shorter than most, and then it incorporates this frog rubber, which just flares unbelievably. But it's Randy Blaukat's signature jig, dude. So literally the best drop jig that I've ever found was designed by the guy who hates forward facing the most. So here's what I wanted to do though. A few weeks ago, I think it was, I got a message from a guy who watches the videos and he's like, I got a sick jig that I made. So he sends it to me and it's this pink custom jig, dude. Absolutely killer. And right after that, I got my hands on these. And this is probably the hardest to find jackhammer ever. This is the Morning Dawn JackHammer. The thing is sick, dude. It's like Aaron Martin's perfect robo-worm, like Morning Dawn. Absolutely sick, right? So I'm like thinking and I'm like, I need to build this custom jig, but I want to use Randy's head because it's so perfect for either dragging or doing this drop style technique, but it doesn't come in pink, right? And basically there really aren't any jigs that come in pink, so I got to build this thing. So there's a lot of steps involved with this because it is 100% custom. Nobody makes anything like this, but literally by the end of this video, I'm going to show you how to build a jig that nobody has and in a color that's extremely hot right now, especially for this winter time with the focus on forage, dude. So hit that like and subscribe button, smash that hype button if you see it. By the end of this video, you're gonna have something that nobody's slanging, dude. All right, let's jump into this process. And the first step is the hardest, dude. So I'm going to use this jig as my basis. However, you need to make some mods to it to get it where you need it to be. So all these jigs come in darker colors, right? Darker head, darker brush guard. What you actually need to do is take some acetone, treat the head of the jig, take a pocket knife, and chip away at it, and then you jostle that brush guard and it'll pop right out. Your end result, it took a lot of time to do these, looks something like this. So you get a bunch of naked ball heads, dude, take your time, wear gloves, it's a process, right? But once you get there, you're almost home. So what you need to do then is replace that brush guard, right? So I got some of these clear brush guards just like this, and I wanted them to kind of, you know, be nice and subtle and blend in with the skirt blend that I'm going to do color-wise. The only trick that I found is the ones that I got are too big. So I actually need to take them and you grab maybe like halfway through and rip it off just like that. Grab yourself some super glue, all right? Just standard gel super glue. You can also do it with epoxy. The super glue was just something I had at the house, so it's a little bit easier, right? All you're gonna do then is you're gonna have that porthole right there. You're gonna fill that with some of that super glue. Be very careful because it can get a little messy. And then take your time on this and you're going to get this brush guard material into there. It takes some pinching and rolling, but once you get it in there, twist it a little, just like that. And it takes, I wanna say like 2 or 3 minutes for it to set. So don't go futzing around with it. Don't play around with it. Let it just set up. Your end result, I've already done a couple, is gonna look something like that, dude. Moving on to the skirt. This is where things get a little tricky. You can't use your standard kind of like skirt maker kit that I've always showed you guys. You need something a little sneakier, especially if you're going to do an O-ring. This is a skirt stretcher, dude, that my buddy Ronan gave me. They don't make them anymore. The alternative to that is you can wrap this in thread or braid if you don't have a machine like this. So as you guys have seen in the other custom jig videos that I've done, I love these guys. These are these little Boss O-rings. They give the skirt material a very nice flare, right? They push it out almost like a hand-tied kind of skirt or a hand-tied like collar. So what you're gonna do, and I already have one on there, is you put that O-ring onto the spreader and you turn it. This is where things get a little tricky though. So I got some round rubber material. This is frog rubber. It comes in these strips. It's a little different than your silicone pieces that actually have like a tab on the end. So that makes them a little more easier to manage. You're still going to need the hook that you always have when you're doing the standard little tube skirts with that O-ring. Because what you actually need to do is this. You're gonna take a piece of the round rubber, about yay long, and you're gonna go ahead and cut it across. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just gotta cut it. And then you're gonna pass that through this machine just using your hands. And actually, I probably gotta take a little bit of it off just like that in order to make room. But it kind of sucks because there's no way to pull this stuff through. You have to just pull it through manually, and it makes it a little bit tricky. But you're gonna get it so that it's just in the middle, just like that. Now the reason we removed some of that round rubber is because we're gonna pass some other skirt material through there, so we need a little space. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take a pink strip just like that, and then I'm gonna take one of my purple strips. So this light violet right here, just like that. And these are just gonna be treated like we do with our standard skirt making, where I'm gonna stick them together just like that. I kinda want the purple under the pink. And then I am going to pass my hook right through the bottom here. You gotta be very careful to not disrupt the round rubber too much. And then you're gonna take this stuff and hook it onto that hook using that tab, and you wanna hold on to your round rubber, and then you gently jostle it through, just like so. Very carefully, because this is very tricky, and you get it so it's just about half and half like that. And you need to be very gentle and very delicate in this process, because you're basically overstuffing that O-ring, and it's not meant to be done this way, all right? And I'm going to close my little skirt stretcher, my little O-ring stretcher. So this is super tedious, and you're drawing each of these little pieces apart, but this frog rubber is such a important component of the jig, because especially in the winter situation with the cold water, this is the stuff that's gonna make that jig just flare, like do that flaring without even having to move the jig just as it's falling. One little trick that I found is if you take the brush guard, like an extra one that you have on the side, and you spread it just like that, you can actually almost use it like a comb, and you put it into that skirt material, into the round rubber, and you comb it out, and it helps to split that material and spread it out because they are so fine. It's not a perfect solution, but it does help to kind of expedite the process a little bit. Once you get that skirt as spread as you want it to be, so it's just nice and kind of pretty loose, you might have to do some afterwards tweaking. You go ahead and you gradually kind of work it off and bring it out, and you're left with that beautiful piece of machinery, dude. That is absolutely sick. So what we're gonna do, now we're on the easy peasy path. Our jig skirt, or our jig brush guard has dried in, it's solid. We're gonna take that base jig and we're just gonna thread this thing on. What I recommend you do though, is just give it a little lick. I know you're not supposed to lick lead, but give it a little lick, because what's gonna happen, that round rubber can be a little sticky when you're sliding over the shaft of the hook compared to the silicone. So it's gonna just give it a little bit of lubrication. You pop that hook right through that O-ring, and then you slide it on up, and you're gonna roll it onto the collar of that jig ever so gently, just like that, until you get that nice little pop in. And right now it doesn't look very pretty, right? It's kind of a mess, but now is when you take that scissors and you're gonna make some tweaks, right? We're gonna make this into the finesse jig that we want it to be. So you draw everything kind of nice and tight, and then you take that big scissors and you just start trimming a little bit. Always go less rather than more, and you can always do more, but if you start with less, you can get it to exactly where you want it to be, because I want some skirt on there, I just don't want it like crazy thick. So once I get it about where I want it to be, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to kind of adjust some things, spreading kind of that material out, making it a little more even, spreading the colors out to kind of get the basic look of where I want to be. Now, there's a couple different options. I'm gonna leave this one a little more moppy, just like that. And when I say moppy, basically the top ends of that jig skirt are a little bit longer. If you want to create like a true little finesse jig, you can go ahead and trim those out, give them like kind of a buzz cut, so they're only maybe, I don't know, like 1/4 of an inch long. But I want this thing to have a little more flair, so I'm gonna leave it just like that. Now that's pretty much the product that we're going to get. The last step is actually trimming that brush guard. And I'm gonna do that at kind of a 45. You wanna hold it while you're doing it and go less rather than more. But I think that's about, I missed one of them. I think that's about where we wanna be. That thing looks so super sick. That's a Morning Dawn custom ball head Randy B forward facing jig, dude. Now here's one of the big questions. What do you put on the back, right? So my standard that I like doing with these finesse jigs is like cutting up a stick bait or using a Ned style bait. There's a few different options because I like to kind of contrast, or sometimes I like to go with the same color. One thing you can do is take like a smoke colored stick bait like that, semi-transparent, and just give it a clip right there at the worm sack, and then you can thread that thing on. Is that not absolutely beautiful? So there's a couple other options too. You guys know I'm buddies with Ryan, who owns Cast Baits, and they're coming out with, I don't even know if I'm supposed to show this to you, but they're coming out with a worm. It's called the Nova worm, and I got a few of the prototypes. It's a super unique worm, and it comes in that pinky stinky, dude. And what's really interesting is, I don't know if you guys can actually hear that, there's a little rattle embedded in the tail of that thing. Once again, it has kind of like that sickle kind of pointy tail. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just trim this down to right about there. And by adding this Nova worm, I can actually put a rattle onto this jig without adding one of those clunky kind of rattle harnesses, and it's gonna match up with that pink like epically, dude. How about that, boys? Is that not like a sick little finesse jig? Plus, it has the feature of the added rattle. So it's a process building this jig. And, you know, I don't know if it's 100% worth it, but for me, whenever I can make something that's totally unique, that also falls into a category, dude, they're chewing the pink. Like, I don't know why, but it's one of those things where it's popular right now, but there's a very good reason. Just like red with a lipless, right? I'll put links to everything down in the description box so that you can grab it if you want. The biggest key to me is that basis of that Cumberland Pro head. And I know Randy is just like freaking out every time I show this, but in all honesty, it's a great dragging and classical jig, but it's a killer drop jig for doing some of this finesse, like forward-facing drop style technique. I hope you guys enjoyed this though, dude. I thought it was super cool, and I'm like, dude, after seeing that chatterbait in Morning Dawn, I'm like, I have to build this custom jig. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you ever tried to build like a pink jig like this, and if you guys got any questions about the process, definitely holler at me. What I'm hoping is like somebody at Cumberland or somebody is gonna see this and build us a jig like this, because to be honest, it takes way too much time to do this, dude, and I know I'm gonna lose it on my first cast. We will see you later, my homies. Hope you dug this. I'll see you out on the water. I'm gonna be slanging this thing.